Think we're live? Okay. And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So today is October the 7th, 2022. So here are some interesting things that's been going on this past week or so. So let's get started. So first topic we'll be covering is a favorite of mine of sorts in terms of since the pandemic, a lot of businesses had to shut down, events had to be postponed, delayed, or even shut down permanently. But in this case, one of my favorite, which I hope to be able to attend in the near future, is attending Comic Con or Comic Convention, where if you're a fan of any sci-fi genre or sci-fi films, TV series, and whatnot, or comic books, here's to be able to watch them in person and enjoy the community. And in particular, the New York Comic Con is back, so we'll be discussing that as well. Next, we'll be talking about an issue that has propped up in Amazon. There's always something wrong with Amazon. In this case, there was a fire that broke out, and the thing is, workers were hesitant on going back to work in terms of safety issues. But guess what the company did? They tried to fire or suspend those workers. So we'll talk about as well if it's warranted or not. Next, we'll be talking about cloud services. Now, obviously, with the globalization, especially the rise of many tech companies utilizing cloud services wherein you save your data in the cloud or in the internet or whatever you want to call it, has become more and more convenient and lucrative for those businesses. And one of those companies that is late into the game is Google or Alphabet Inc. So we'll talk about that. Next is a major acquisition of a company, an unknown company for me. I'm assuming for majority, a Korean internet giant by the name of Naver has acquired a e-commerce platform or business, Poshmark, in the sum of 1.2 billion. Is this the right? Is a good decision? Is this beneficial for both parties and so forth? We'll talk about that. And lastly, for our last topic, we'll be talking about, for the many times I always criticize Apple's decision in terms of anti-consumerism. We'll be talking about one of the many traits that an Apple company is looking for in their potential employees. And I think this applies to any company that you're planning to apply in the very near future or something in the near future. So stay tuned for the last part when we discuss that. So without further ado, so let's begin with our first story, as I mentioned. So Comic-Con is a very popular, what do you call this? Popular event wherein a lot of people get to dress up, in their favorite characters. And, it's not just a small group of people. Well, take a look at the entertainment industry wherein films, TV shows are being made left and right to capitalize on their popularity. And obviously, if we were to look at the many instances where people get to dress up their favorite characters, who doesn't want to do that? Who wants to be a Superman, a Wonder Woman, or any characters at that? And think of Halloween. People dress up in the many costumes, and you get to do that on that particular day, and you wouldn't look weird. So outside of the Halloween, people get to dress up in their favorite characters. And the best part about it is you get to meet some of the big stars or former or current big stars that have donned the many characters that we have grown to love and enjoyed. And obviously meeting those people, waiting in line hours and hours on end just to be able to see a glimpse of those characters is always a tremendous experience, which I haven't, sad to say, but hopefully I'll have that opportunity sometime in the future here. But anyway, so let's go back to our main topic here in terms of New York Comic Con tries to get back to normal in a world changed by COVID. And as I mentioned earlier, obviously, when the pandemic struck, many of the big events, it's not just Comic Con, you have E3 or any trade expo that invites people all around the world for that big expo or congregation here. And Comic Con is not immune to those scenario here. And what's interesting here, uh, the Comic Con or New York Comic Con will begin on Thursday at Javits Center and start to run through Sunday. So I think it's a 3 to 4 day event. So it's a very short one, but it's jam packed, meaning you spend the whole day, visiting the convention center and being able to see different booths, different people, different stars, and maybe there's events, maybe unveiling from the many studios that's trying to showcase superhero films like MCU's, Disney's MCU's, Marvel superheroes, and then you have DC's, from Warner Brothers DC, superheroes with the upcoming Shazam sequel. Then you also have the anticipated Black Adam for the DC's characters. Then also you have Black Panther Wakanda Forever for the MCU. There's still a plethora of films that's going to be showcased or planned reveal in the future. Just like the last week when we talked about the highly anticipated Deadpool 3 with the cameo or the reintroduction of the thought to be dead character Logan, or Wolverine in this case, has been brought to life again. And what's interesting is the convention is a money maker for those event organizers, because it draws 200,000 visitors yearly. And obviously, with the restriction being lifted, more and more people are willing to visit those places still. And I think I was watching one of Adam Savage's channel wherein he tried to create a costume, I think in the likes of Iron Man. I think I forgot which character, and he started out. Obviously, when you wear the Iron Man suit, no one would could see who the character is inside, and he was able to traverse around, meet a lot of people, and obviously creating the suit was the challenge in itself. So he created a video out of that, and people are going to have fun. And that's the whole point here. And obviously, generating revenue for the event is another lucrative aspect, that if people, not just the organizers, the studios, or even the actors who visits, obviously if you try to get their signature or take a photo or two, means a revenue generator for those many characters as well. So let's take a look here. So as you may see here, some popular characters from the MCU, from Black Widow, and then you have the Mandalorian series, and a plethora of other characters that people could wear, and people will not you know look at you differently if that were the case here. And and it's mentioned that it's getting there, so meaning it hasn't returned to its glory days before the pandemic hit. So it's right, so it's a 4-day event. As mentioned, it begins on Thursday, and then it will end on a Sunday. So typically, many of the interesting events that tends to happen at the first few days of the event. So, big stars that you want to meet will typically visit the first few days, and obviously the latter part, the third or even the last day, there's fewer events happening. So, not decided, not worth it, but not you're not getting the cream of the crop, so to speak here. So as mentioned, they generally receive about 200,000 visitors that attend the convention here. Now, due to the COVID restrictions, they have reduced the capacity to just 150,000 people, but higher than 130,000 typically drawn at San Diego Comic Con, which is held at in California during the summer. But it's still a far off cry of 250,000 or 250,000 fans who visited the event before the pandemic, as mentioned. But again, things are getting to some normalcy if you think about it, and eventually people will go back to their normal routine, and people get vaccinated. They're more protected. They're more confident in traversing, going out, to different places, not just interstate, but in foreign countries as well. Now, the company who owns the New York Comic Con is Reed Pop. So they are fine with the being conservative for the 2 years after the coronavirus forced organizers to make the event virtually entirely virtual. Now, even though the virus is still present, but being vaccinated, having that safety net is always a big plus here. And with Warner Brothers, this Discovery Plus merger is looking to make a big splash with several experiences, including a truck on Friday that will give away breakfast sandwiches, cupcakes, swags to celebrate their 30th anniversary of Harley Quinn. Now, they've been trying to promote Harley Quinn as a main character, but I don't think Harley Quinn as an independent solo character is not the same as the Joker character on its own because of its popularity. And obviously in the comics, Harley Quinn is just a supporting character to Joker main character. Now, if they have Joker there and Harley Quinn as a supplement, I think that would make sense based on the comic stories here. And obviously, if you have Joker there, it makes sense to have Batman there as well. And and focusing on just the Harley Quinn character, like what happened to the Birds of Prey, it flopped terribly, and compared to the Joker, which was a standalone film, did much better. So based on the data alone, just shows you that maybe people are not or fans of comic books are into the character here, even if they try to do the storylines to highlight the character Harley Quinn here. And as mentioned here, what's interesting, even though the revenue or the people attended is not the same as before the pandemic, one benefit of doing the event virtually is the digital business was able to take note, meaning grow in terms of popularity of creating YouTube channels and UK Gamers Network and so forth. So there's always opportunity for different instances here, and the question is, will it continue to prosper? Well, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out here. And I'm a big fan of Comic Con, whether it's New York or even San Diego here. So we'll wait and see how this pans out in terms of its popularity. Will it be consecutive now in the next year or in the next few years? We'll wait and see here. Anyway, next we'll be talking about, as mentioned, the issue that's always ever present with Amazon with regards to suspending their workers who refused to work after a fire broke out at the New York warehouse. Now, if you were to look at the story, does it make sense for Amazon to suspend employees if the warehouse that is deemed unsafe, obviously, even if there's no more fire, the smoke, the residual smoke of the fire that caused, is it still present? Unless you are able to remove those dangerous black smoke that is caused by the fire, then obviously there's a health hazard there. And as you may notice, there's a common theme with Amazon here, especially if there's a problem, they try to necessarily sweep it away in terms of when the pandemic happened, asking people to go back to work in the warehouses, and people protesting, is it safe, not safe, what are the company doing, what is the company doing to be able to ensure the safety of those employees. And here we are again. Obviously the question here is, what caused the fire? Is it negligent on the company, negligence on the employee side? But regardless of the case, there should be protocols. If there's a danger or hazard to people, then you have to shut down productions no matter how long it takes, as long as you ensure the safety. That's why it brings credence as to why employees are trying to unionize here, regardless it's to the detriment to Amazon here. And obviously, if they were able to do their job well in terms of not just protecting the company's interest, but as well as the employees' interest, I think everyone can benefit there in the long run here. And obviously, clashing with your own employees is never a good way to enamor yourself with your key stakeholders, which is your employees here. And workers citing safety concerns after a fire broke out is a very serious matter, and that's why the companies in their current state where workers at the Staten Island uh, unionizing is very important to them to showcase that we're serious people, and obviously people lives matters, and obviously the safety should be paramount first before everything else, before even profit here. And question is, will there be any changes or improvement that will happen, or will they just use whatever means to squash this issue and let those employees, fire them, suspend them permanently, and obviously it creates a lot more chaos with the relationship, not just with your employees, but obviously this looks bad and appears perspective with how customers looks at your company, and even for investors who plans on investing more in the company here. So we'll see. Anyway, so third we'll be talking about same again with tech companies. So in this case, we'll be shifting to Google, as the company is one of the biggest tech companies in the world, obviously. But what's interesting, they're late to the market in terms of offering cloud services, in particular in the African nations, in particular in South Africa, wherein big players such as Microsoft's Azure, you have Amazon Web Services is already in the market, and Google is last to be part of it. And obviously, Google is one of the biggest offerings or biggest providers of cloud services. Kind of interesting that they're late to the game. Typically, they're always first to the market here. So we'll take a look here. So Google picks South Africa for its first ever cloud region in Africa here. So it mentions here that has announced that they have launched a cloud service, cloud region in South Africa in particular. It's first in its continent, playing catch up to AWS, as mentioned, which is owned by Amazon. You have Microsoft Azure, to name another. Now they're targeting other regions as well in Africa. You have Nairobi, Kenya. You have Lagos, Nigeria, and South Africa, Cape Town, and Johannesburg, in their quest to provide full-scale cloud capabilities for its customers and partners in Africa. Now, obviously, cloud services has been growing steadily, and it makes sense that those big tech companies is continuing to provide those services and leveraging their infrastructure to be able to provide a tremendous services, and obviously earns them a substantial revenue in terms of not just millions but tens of billions of dollars in revenue. Now, Google plans to tap its private subsea cable, Equiano, which connects Africa and Europe to power the sites. So Equiano, as mentioned, has been underdeveloped since 2019 and has so far made 4 landings in Togo, Namibia, Nigeria, and South Africa. So they're only able to utilize it after 3 years. Now, South Africa now joins Google's global network of 35 cloud regions and 106 of zones worldwide. So, I mean, they haven't tapped the entire global network, but it's getting there. And they also announced a launch in other regions, in particular in Southeast Asia and in Oceanic, Malaysia, Thailand, as well as New Zealand. So Google Cloud Regions allows users to deploy cloud services from specific geographic locations and access several services, including cloud storage, compute engine, and key. Did I lost my connection? One of the benefits of having cloud storage is if you, let's say on a personal basis, you use their Gmail account or Google account, and if you need to save files, Obviously, there's a limit as to how much you can save files in your desktop or in your smartphone. So eventually, you need to save it somewhere else. And Google is offering those services. And but still, there's a limit here. And where revenue can come in is if you want to continue use their services, you have to pay a recurring fee, a subscription fee at that, which make them a boatload of money. And the bigger the storage you need to utilize, the larger the revenue that they can potentially earn as well. And it's not just Google that's benefiting from this business model, but other companies like Microsoft and Amazon, as mentioned here. Now, according to Google Cloud Africa Director Niral Patel, mentions that we are excited to announce that the first Google Cloud region in Africa. Now, the region will allow for the localization of application and services. It will make it really easier for our customers and partners to quickly deploy solutions for their businesses, whereby they'll be able to leverage our computer, artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities, and data analytics to make smarter business decisions as they go forward here. And obviously, at the end of the day, it benefits them. They collect the data, they get paid at the same time, and and obviously it generates a positive cycle for Google's business here. It mentions here that the region and interconnect sites will take its cloud computing services closer to its client, allowing its customer to choose where to consume the products from, which is, at the end of the day, how fast you can serve your customers will, depend on the business, be able to adapt quickly or move quickly or sort those information into critical decisions that the company can benefit so that they can help out in their respective industries here. And it mentions here, according to Mr. Patel, what we're going to do here is giving customers and partners a choice on where they'd like to store their data and where they'd like to consume their cloud services. Especially in the context of data sovereignty, this allows customers to then store the data in the country which they should choose to do so. So I guess for me, the most important element is that it gives customers the element of choice. Well, obviously that's the goal for anyone, any individual here, is to have the choice as to whether you want to save your data in the cloud services or the traditional way of saving it in your hardware. And if you so choose to save it in the cloud services and have the option to which vendor will provide the best value in terms of price, security, and the features that everyone is looking forward to. So it's interesting that it's become popular now in many regions, not more so here in our country, in Asia in particular, but in terms of the infrastructure, because it's not everyone has constant access of the internet. So that can be a problem here. But eventually, I think, decades down the line, 10, 20, or even 50 years down the line, saving your data in the cloud storage will be commonplace. But obviously, that's an additional cost for the end user here. We'll wait and see here. Anyway, continuing with our story. we have some visitors here today. Yes, actually, the characters that I enjoy is Heath Ledger from Christian Bale's Batman series. I'm Batman. And actually, I haven't watched Joaquin Phoenix version of the Joker. I'm looking forward to it if I have free time, and would be interesting. And it's a standalone film. That's why I'm surprised also why don't many studios create lone standing films that doesn't have to be connected to different films, continuation of different stories and whatnot here. Ah, car. Yeah, it's a Ferrari Lego set that I built last year during the pandemic. So I found time to do other stuff here. Anyway, thank you for joining in. So if you have any comments, leave your comments down below, and I'll check back in a bit after we discuss some more topics here. Anyway, so continuing with our story. Yeah, so going back to Asia here. So when I found this article, it was pretty interesting in terms of how a company tries to expand their reach and their growth in terms of dominating in their local market, which is pretty interesting. And one company is such as Naver, which is an internet provider in Korea, which I didn't know was that big. To the fact that they're buying other companies in the sum of billions of dollars, which is pretty remarkable in itself. So here, they're buying an American fashion reseller, Poshmark, for the sum of 1.2 billion here. So let's take a closer look of who Naver is and what is Poshmark all about here. So here we can see the co-founder Lee Hae-jin, the South Korean billionaire Naver, the country's largest internet company by market capitalization. They have agreed to acquire American fashion e-commerce platform Poshmark for the sum of 1.2 billion. So obviously their goal here is to expand their international expansion here, which is reasonable. This is what many companies typically does once they have dominated in their market, and obviously expansion is always the goal here. So Naval will purchase the company, Poshmark, uh, price share of close to $18 per share in cash, and a premium of $15 to its closing stock price, but less than the IPO listing of $42. Now, Poshmark will become a standalone subsidiary of Naver while retaining its current management team. So meaning they will be taken over in a sense, but the organization will be Naver, and then Poshmark is below, which will still be led by its founder CEO Manish Chandra. So what's interesting here, according to Naver CEO Choi, mentions that bringing Naver and Poshmark together will immediately put us at the forefront of creating new, socially responsible and sustainable shopping experience designed around sellers and all sizes and interests. Obviously, the business of Naver is not necessarily a similar business, but a supplement business that made sense for them. And the fact that Poshmark is offering e-commerce services platform for selling, what would you say? Selling to the American market, which is totally different, which is in South Korea here. So we'll see how this partnership benefits both companies, in particular if Naver made the best choice in terms of acquiring Poshmark here. And it's interesting that e-commerce plays a growing role in Naver's growth. Obviously, spending billions of dollars is a big gamble here. Having generated 440 billion won in sales that quarter, a year-on-year increase of almost 20%. So the tech giant, I think, is not yet done. Is looking to enhance its foothold in the U.S. As part of its international expansion, maybe looking to acquire several more companies down the line that make sense for them. Naver's properties outside of Korea includes Los Angeles-based online graphic novel platform Webtoon Entertainment, and then there's Toronto-based Wattpad, an online literature and fan fiction website that Naver acquired last May for the sum of 600 million. So meaning they have cash to burn, and obviously they need to utilize those resources and invest it either in their company or by other companies that would generate more revenue, more value for their company as well, which obviously many investors is always looking at the bottom line here, if it's worthwhile investment here. So we'll wait and see. Anyway, for our last story, I mentioned this earlier when we started this live stream regarding, for all the strengths that that Apple does, in particular the CEO, of helping solidify, even grow the company to where they are now from where Steve Jobs started. Obviously, managing a multi-billion or multi-trillion company is not an easy feat. And when Tim Cook says something, people are listening. And what's interesting here in today's discussion is Tim Cook reveals what are the key traits that everyone should have that Apple is looking for potential employees. So let's take a closer look here. So I think this doesn't just apply to Apple as a company, but to any company that you're planning on applying, or if you have your own business, if you're looking for talented employees that you want to hire for your own business as well. So let's take a look. What are those key traits that Tim Cook is saying here? So he was talking here at the University of Naples, Federico in the second in Italy. Mr. Cook emphasized how important incoming Apple staff care about the world, which is reasonable in itself. And as he believes that this brings out the best work in people, obviously you have to be well-rounded, not just isolated in itself. So he mentioned four key attributes as mentioned here. So the first of this is, given the company's controversial return to work mandate, possibly the most relevant today is the ability to collaborate with colleagues. And I think for a certain time during the pandemic, remote working or working at home made sense, but eventually people has to go back to some normalcy, meaning dealing with your coworkers face to face. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's the challenge. That's why in our organization, working with different people is very critical, and having a harmonious relationship is even more critical. Having an online relationship is no substitute to actual face-to-face physical interaction, which I tend to agree with what Mr. Cook is saying here. So he goes on to say that we look for the ability to collaborate with people, the fundamental feeling that if I share my idea with you, that the idea will grow and get bigger and be better. Now, obviously having that closeness is being able to communicate clearly the subtle nuances when you make body expressions. If you like the idea or if it's terrible, it's more pronounced than, let's say, if you're just watching it in an online setup or in Zoom or in Google Meets. So he mentions that Apple's ability to create new products stem from collaborative rather than individual efforts, which is obviously there in the development of new products or improvement of their current product, whether it's iPhone, their tablets, desktop, or even their laptops as well. He cited that creativity is another trait that Apple is looking forward. Obviously, the nature of the game for Apple is being able to provide new ideas, tremendous ideas that could benefit the company, and obviously none more so the creativity that I wouldn't say Steve Jobs created, but the necessity is required to be successful as a company. Obviously, creativity and innovation goes hand in hand, because if you don't think of improving a product or services that you're offering now, you'll become obsolete very quickly, especially in the tech industry, more so than in their industry that we're discussing here. And he goes on to mention that we're looking for somebody that will kind of walk around the problem and look at it from different angles and use creative juices to come up with solutions, which another thing. So creativity and innovation will always gives you the openness, be open-minded, as mentioned here, that you're not limited to just one narrow-minded focus, that if you cannot solve it, you give up. Sometimes maybe you have to look at a different perspective, maybe look at the left side, the right side, maybe change the orientation of a particular problem. Then you might come up with a interesting solution that you wouldn't normally see if you're just stuck with what you're facing in front of you. He goes on to say, so curiosity is another attribute that is very interesting to Mr. Cook. He goes on to say that's curious enough to ask a lot of questions. So obviously, being able to understand the problem is one thing, being able to find solutions. In order to do that, you have to ask difficult questions. Sometimes you have to ask dumb questions, stupid questions, to eliminate those unnecessary misuse of your time, so that whatever is left, you can come up with a viable problem or key problem that is hindering your progress, whether it's coming up with a new product or improving a new product that you have here. And having those curiosity obviously helps a lot in getting the job quickly. Now, obviously, it puts pressure on the person to think through the answers really deeply. Now, obviously, in their case, obviously, time is an element here. If you have a project that, let's say, you're given, let's say, a month, 6 months, or even a year, or whatever the time frame is, there's still a limit as to how long they're willing to wait, unless you provide the desired results that they're looking for. Now, lastly, that they're looking for is workers with high level of expertise. Meaning, if we're doing something in industrial design, we need someone that knows industrial design and a skill set in it, either from their college days or through their work days. Which what they're trying to do is, are you a master of the field that you're trying to apply or work for in that particular field? But obviously, they're paying top dollars for the people who they hire, and they expect a lot from those people. So obviously, it's a very highly competitive, highly stressful work, and it's not for everyone. But if you have that mental fortitude, as mentioned by Mr. Tim Cook, and if you have that skill, as mentioned, the curiosity, the expertise, the creativity, and as well as the ability to collaborate with different people, will ensure your success and your long stay in the company here. And obviously, this applies not just to Apple, the company, but also to many companies that you plan to work there for a very long time. Otherwise, typically, if that's not the case, people tend to stay there only for a short period of time, and then they'll move on to another company, which is, again, it's a waste of resources for a company to hire you, and then they'll let you go or you leave, and then they have to train another person to replace you, and the cycle keeps on going. And that's no way of doing business, because obviously investing in a lot of time and effort in an employee is very critical. And we've seen many instances when companies tend to let go of their key employees, like in the aviation industry, in the airline industry, where they let go of many of their experienced pilots. They're now having to find ways to replace them, and replace them with inexperienced pilot is no way to do business here. Could be catastrophic if they're not careful here. So obviously, those key set skills are interesting enough that I'm willing to share to everyone. Hopefully this makes sense to everyone that is, planning to work sometime in the future, or maybe start your own business here. And always, at the end of the day, the key that one has to realize is the importance of, always evolving, having that, like what Tim Cook mentioned, that curiosity, and be able to solve problems, actually. And in order to be able to solve problems, you have to ask a lot of difficult questions. Some dumb questions, some difficult questions. But the goal here is to be able to come up with a viable solution. And that's all that matters, I think, to Tim Cook. If you can provide that solution at the end of the day, then you'll become invaluable, actually, to the company here. Anyway, that's it for the day, for this week. Hope you found our discussion here interesting. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to help grow this channel. So we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, getting close. So help support the channel and grow the channel as well. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.